Hi, it's Dwyer. It is May 6, 2025. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Let's talk about a betting play in the NBA. A lot of upsets have been happening. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Folks, you got a lot of weird things happening in the NBA. What I want people to do is to focus on the Golden State Warrior Minnesota T-Wolves series right now. Let me just point out that Golden State was playing out of its mind. Curry had three threes at the time he left the game. Just understand, Buddy Hield had five in the game. Draymond Green had four in the game. In other words, the Warriors were just spectacular from three. Understand, too, in terms of plus minus, Buddy Hield had a plus 22. The big question here, and understand me, hear me clearly. I know the Warriors have some young guns, right? Podiemski is dangerous, right? You also have Moody. You also have Kaminga, right? But what I want people to understand, and the purpose of this video for futures bettors, given that Golden State has just snatched, game one, right? Given that Golden State, did so without Steph Curry, is that now is the time, while the price is cheap, mid playoffs, to grab the Minnesota Timberwolves at 16 to 1 to win it all, right? I don't expect them to win it all. All we're doing is trying to arbitrage. We're just trying to take them here. If they beat Golden State, then you are in the conference finals. Understand, OKC lost the first game of their series to Denver. Understand, this is the big fact in this video, right? Minnesota played Denver four times this year. Minnesota was 4-0 against the Denver Nuggets, right? 4-0. Understand, too, Minnesota played OKC four times this year. They were 2-2 against OKC, right? So just understand, the winner of this series plays the winner of that series. I was expecting OKC to run roughshod through the West. I thought the Clippers had a shot on them. I was expecting Houston to beat Golden State last series, right? Houston, bad at the free throw line, too young, not ready against this veteran-led Warrior team. But let's get into psychology here. And it's important. People who watch the Olympics, the last game of the Olympics, saw Steph Curry controlled for most of the game. But Steph has some personality attribute that makes him a leader, right? While you were watching France give the USA all it could handle, right, there was a certain calmness. The idea was, hey, we're not going to panic that Steph Curry is missing in action in this key game and the United States is getting tested, right, by the host country. Then, of course, you got to the fourth quarter, Steph Curry explodes. He starts doing his night-night thing, right? USA in control. Steph Curry, hottest player on the court in the fourth quarter. Now, that's who he is for the Golden State Warriors. Understand, it's not just three-point shooting. It's team personality, right? He's one of the old guard. He's one of the guys who've won 4 rings, right? He's an authority figure with the Warriors. Game 7 of that Houston series, Steph Curry controlled for 3 quarters. No panic on the Warriors. Then, of course, fourth quarter comes, Steph Curry explodes, the team wins. Right, folks? We've all watched sports a long time, right? I've never heard, ever, of a hamstring problem that solves itself in a day, right? Just never have heard of it. In other words, when a guy has a hamstring problem and he immediately leaves the game, right? Steph Curry, this game, he's not out there for the second half, right? Hamstring, he left, right? Just understand that tells me that he's going to be out for multiple games, right? Now, I'll agree. The Warriors have a superstar head coach, right? Steph's not the only person winning all of these rings. Steve Kerr is winning all of these rings, and Steve Kerr is a magician, right? He keeps the team, on the straight and narrow, right? And I'll agree too. Jimmy Butler, hardcore vet. Draymond Green, one of the Defensive Player of the Year finalists. Draymond Green has all the rings too. I don't believe it's enough against this TWolves team. As bad as Anthony Edwards started this game, and he was atrocious in the first quarter. He ends up with a low -4. Right? Understand, the guys who didn't play well, Rudy Gobert, for some reason, doesn't translate in this series. Right? This is the same Rudy Gobert who was dominant against the Lakers in the last game of that series. Look at that stat line. Right? Rudy doesn't translate. Mike Conley didn't play a good game here. Right? But if you look at that box score, it's not that lopsided. Understand, in terms of regular season wins and losses, the teams are very close. Right? Very close. And so, my feeling is that Minnesota is going to bounce back in game 2. If they do, they're facing a diminished Warrior team that's going to have to rely on Podziemski or, Kuminga to carry them. Let's talk about personality here. And I know I'm going to get into non-PC, ground here. But Buddy Hield is mercurial. In other words, he's been hot of late. He started the season red hot. Then he disappeared for a couple of months. Right? I know it's going to sound unfair, but, just like not every offensive and defensive coordinator in football is head coaching material, different skill set. I'm just telling you that there is no one on the Warriors, and I mean no one, who can replace Steph Curry's leadership. Right? No one. Right? It's not the same Steph Curry being on the sideline, waving a towel. Right? And Steph Curry being on the court saving you in the fourth quarter. Right? It's just not going to be the same. Right? Buddy Hield is better as Robin than Batman. Right? Understand, he's the best three-point shooter left on the team in terms of highest upside. Draymond Green might not hit 4 threes again in any game in the series. Right? He's up and down. So you're telling me a Warrior team without Steph Curry is going to beat this TWolves team? I'm sorry, I don't see that happening. Right? I think the TWolves bounce back. I think, the Steph Curry injury is just too big to overcome. Understand, Steph Curry is not a set shooter. His legs are part of his jumper. Right? You have a hamstring injury, the world has changed. Let me also say, too, you're a team owner in the National Basketball Association. You understand that Jimmy Butler just got there. Fans love him, but fans don't really know him. You understand your cash cow, the staple of your team, is Steph Curry. Right? Klay Thompson, gone. Right? Your horse is Steph Curry. Now, clearly, you want a title, but you're looking around and you're asking yourself questions like, is our team good enough to win a title this year? Right? Aren't we a little light on bigs? Do we have enough to beat a team like Boston if Boston gets in the NBA Finals? Right? Do we have enough to beat a 68-win team like the OKC Thunder if they can right that ship? Right? Who do we possibly have in our roster to stop Joker in the paint? Right? So the Warriors have to be honest with themselves. With a healthy Steph Curry, things had to break right for the Warriors to even have a chance at the title. So if you're Laker and you own the Golden State Warriors, you're thinking to yourself, look, my meal ticket, the guy worth hundreds of millions of dollars to this team, the guy filling Chase Center, has hurt his hamstring. Are we going to have him out there? This is not the NBA Finals. This isn't even the conference finals. Are we going to have him out there possibly aggravating this injury? Curry, of course, well into his 30s, right? In this long shot season. And are we going to risk something happening, right? That injury getting worse. Isn't that what happened to Kevin Durant one year in the playoffs with the Warriors? Are we going to risk Curry, who's already played an inordinate amount of basketball? You heard me talk about the Olympics, right? Most players had an off season, not Curry, right? Curry's in Europe, he's in the Olympics, then he's with the Warriors playing the regular season. They just went 7 games with Houston. Now, of course, he's back out there. The Warriors have been playing every other day. Right? If I'm the team owner, am I going to risk next season? Am I going to risk Curry getting a bad injury? Am I going to risk throwing Curry's shot off, having him out there on low rest with a compromised hamstring? The answer is no. I'm expecting Curry to miss multiple games. Right? As it is, the TWolves might have more talent than the Warriors. As it is. Right? So, right here, in a surprising year, I think Minnesota plus 1,600 to win it all is a great bet. Again, I don't expect them to win it all. Right? But this is an arbitrage opportunity. This is just an opportunity to have them. If they win this series, folks, they're in the Western Conference Finals. Right? The two teams against whom they'd have to play, they have a 6-2 record against. 4-0 against Denver, 2-2 against OKC. Right? So if it's Minnesota against Denver, folks, just think it through. Right? Sometimes structurally, one team's another team's huckleberry. Right? This game one, Rudy Gobert didn't translate. He did against the Lakers. Maybe he translates against Joker. Right? Denver banged up. Let's face it, Michael Porter, who is a very important player because of his high volatility. When he's on, he's on. Right? But understand, he's dinged. You see Aaron Gordon doing a lot of great things. Aaron Gordon's been playing with a bad calf the whole year. Right? Denver's not 100%. And, of course, they were swept by Minnesota during the regular season. So right here, It's just an arbitrage play. You don't have to take it seriously, right? 16 to 1, Minnesota to win the whole thing, right? If Minnesota gets by the Warriors, okay, then you're against the team, whoever it is, OKC or Denver, that Minnesota had at least a 500 record during the regular season. You could actually sit down and watch the beginning of that series to see how it starts, right? If Denver pulls the upset, and that's an intriguing series, right? Look at how bad OKC starters did game one. It wasn't like one guy did bad. No, the starters got blown off the page in game one by Denver. If Denver just happens to match up well with the OKC Thunder, and if Denver ends up in the NBA Finals and Minnesota comes back, right? Again, we're buying them cheap. They just lost, right? Now's the time to shop. They just lost. Markets turned against them, right? If Minnesota comes back in the series, if I asked you before game one, who's the most valuable player on the Golden State Warriors? What Warrior would you least want to see hurt in this series if you want the Warriors to win? I believe 9 out of 10 people would immediately say Steph Curry. Well, folks, he's out, right? Hamstrings. You don't hear, oh, this guy is, hurt with a hamstring, left the game immediately, but he's day to day. No, this is going to be a cover-up, right? This is going to be a hamstring injury where they say, oh, Steph might play because they want the other team a little bit antsy, right? The injury report is going to have some strategy involved. I don't believe you see Steph for game 2. I don't think you see Steph for game 3. You might not see Steph ever again this season. Those are my thoughts. 16-1, Minnesota to win it all. It's an arbitrage, right? What's the worst that can happen? Understand, if they face Denver for the Western Conference Finals, we'll all be shocked. You'll be sitting there with a 16-1 ticket. You could even say, hey, let me bet some on Denver just in case, or you can roll the dice and say, let me see game 1. Is 4-0 going to become 5-0? Right? If Minnesota wins game 1 of that series, then you could have the attitude, hey, you know what? I'm not even going to hedge this until Denver wins a game in this series. Right? Think it through. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours. Let's face it, too. In the Eastern Conference, Indiana has Cleveland in a stranglehold, right? Things just didn't go right for Cleveland. They were up by, 20 or something like that? Then they collapsed, right? Just understand, Indiana is offensively blessed. They have a great coach. Rick Carlisle is a great coach. I'll concede that. Right? But Indiana, Halliburton was great today. But you and I know Indiana is a little bit up and down. Indiana is a little fast and loose. Indiana doesn't have a lot of rim protection. Right? Let's just say Indiana is a little bit more of a high wire act than Cleveland or Boston. Right? So if Indiana somehow beats Cleveland, and if Boston is just uninspired, let's remember, Boston got to an NBA Finals, and then the next year they were flat. Right? There's some part of Boston's identity that has them more motivated to win a title than to defend a title. Right? And of course, Boston has some curious parts, right? Porzingis, he doesn't play, he leaves games. I don't think we really know what the real health situation is with him. Right? So if Indiana, which did well in the playoffs last year, if Indiana pulls an upset and comes out of the East, folks, they're more vulnerable. And I know they're up 2-0, right? But again, you want to shop when there's value. They're more vulnerable than either Cleveland or Boston, who are more structurally built, right? They're more vulnerable to getting beaten by whoever comes out of the Western Conference. Those are my thoughts. Many disagree with me. This is one man's opinion. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.